as Yarnmugs on Instagram and Ravelry. Welcome to my 5th podcast. Today is the 11th of March 2020 and this is my podcast about my knitting, my crochet and sewing. I'm a beginner sewer. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to all my previous viewers who have subscribed, liked, left me lovely comments. I've had loads of comments. I really appreciate that. It's really nice having a bit of a conversation with you, and it makes me feel like I'm not just talking to myself. Glad that you are enjoying what I'm showing you. Really, really nice to chat to you all. If you're a new viewer, you're very welcome. And I hope you like what you see. So, since last time, first of all, let me just say, I'm in my conservatory, and normally I'm freezing cold in here, but it's really sunny today, but it's quite windy, so the sun is sometimes really, really bright, or it goes behind the clouds, so yeah, just you can see the sky above me. But I just thought I can't miss this opportunity to be out in the sunshine. So let's go back to things that I've been making. Last time I had finished my blue tip socks, so I cast on another pair of socks and I finished them. They're drying in the sunshine on sock blockers. I've remembered them for once. So these are a pair I cast on after I'd finished the last ones, and they're all finished. And they are really brightly coloured. They remind me of spring, since we're seeing all the crocuses and daffodils coming up, hence my daffodil. I made this a long time ago. This is from the fantastic Lucy from Attic 24. Is that what she's called? Oh, I've completely forgotten what she's called. Everyone knows Lucy, you know who I'm talking about. She's got loads of free patterns, and this is the daffodil. Anyway, back to these socks. This is using Drops Fabel Print in the colourway number 903. And I've used West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply as a contrast cuff. For those new to the podcast, I am currently knitting my socks in commercial yarn, and I'm using a 50-gram ball for a pair of socks. Really lovely colours. So I'm just doing a vanilla sock for a lot of these socks I'm making, because I always find that with a pattern yarn, it doesn't always go well with a patterned sock. They both sort of seem to cancel each other out. I always think you can't see the pattern well enough. So what I'm doing is sort of changing my heel, toe and cuff to sort of make it feel like I'm not making the same sock over and over again. So I've done 1 by 1 twisted rib, about 15 rows. Then I do 15 rows for the leg, and this time I've done a fish lips kiss heel, which is a great pattern. It only costs about $1, and that $1 goes to a charity. It's a massive pattern, but if you're just making the heel, it's only a matter of 2 or 3 pages, but there are loads of really good information on there about measuring feet for socks and all sorts of things, so I'd really recommend getting that pattern. But for the heel alone, it's fantastic. I don't mind a fish lips kiss heel or a heel flap and gusset. Both seem to fit my feet all right, but it is definitely a shorter heel. So normally then for my foot I would do about 34 rows or rounds, but for this I had to do 42 rounds. And then because of that, I ended up having a bit of yarn left over, which is irritating to me because I want to be able to use all the yarn up, but I will put it into a blanket. And then for the toe, I said last time about I like toes that have a decrease either side of the foot. And I looked through my old socks to see which ones I really enjoy wearing, and one of my favourites are made from the Peter sock pattern by Kay Jones. So that's what I dipped into for this toe. So it's just like a rounded but decrease in either side. So yeah, I'm really pleased with them. Just annoyed that I didn't get to use all the yarn up, but I'll put that into something else. And I'm really happy with these colours. So yeah, so they're all blocked, all ready to wear. And then I've got ready the yarn I want to make for my next socks. I've got them in this cute bag by Gilly Makes. I've had this for quite a while, but I love all the socks on the washing line. And the nice, really natural base, really soft and squishy, perfect for sock knitting, perfect size. So my next sock yarn will be, again, using up my Drops Fabel Print. I quite like this colour in sort of purples, blues and naturals. And that's in the colour 904. And then I'm putting with it a contrast cuff. And this is just, I've got that just in the natural. In fact, it is a number, another 1314. So yeah, I'll have them hopefully ready next time. And I think if I do Fish Lips Kiss Heel, I'm going to do a much longer leg just to make sure I use all that yarn up. So yeah, that's ready to cast on. Just have a sip of tea. In my last podcast, I just finished the Trescow sweater, and I'd been having a chat about feeling the need to cast on another one, but thinking that it would take up a lot of my time. But I did cast on another one. Not a Trescow sweater though. I will make another one, but I've decided to go with a different sweater pattern. So I cast on the Whitmore sweater, and I've got that in this amazing bag. Look at this. It's so lovely, and it is massive. It's perfect for a jumper, and this is a really big jumper. This bag I got from Fibre East last year, and let me just find you the label. Oh, where's my label? Just tell me who it is. I'll get it all out. Oh, here it is. This is Jibbyroo Sews. And she had absolutely loads of bags. Oh, it's lovely, look, all nice inside. Drawstring, but it is a huge bag. I love that. Yeah, she had loads of bags on her stall at Fibre East last year. I hope she's there this year. I'm going to go to Fibre East this year too. Are any of you going to Fibre East? It was my first time last year, and it is a very local to me yarn festival. I'm only about 45 minutes away from there. Yeah, let me know. Are you going to Fibre East in July? Back to the sweater. So I think last time I showed you some yarn that I wanted to put into a sweater, which I did go ahead and use. In fact, let me get my bits and bobs out so I remember everything. So the Whitmore sweater is a top-down lace yoke and seamless. So it's all done in one go, so you don't have to join or sew seams or join the arms. It's all done in one go. A really pretty sweater. If you check out the hashtag Whitmore sweater, it's by the designer Amy Lowden. And she suggests using a strand of fingering weight and a strand of mohair, or a DK weight. So I went with the DK. I said last time I didn't really have a sweater's quantity of yarn, but I had some yarn that I thought might go nicely together. So yeah, let me show you it. So first of all, before I show you it, I sort of was worrying about it because other projects of this pattern are so pretty, and this is not really a pretty sweater. I suppose when you see the sweater made with a mohair, it looks very feminine and delicate, and I'm neither of those things. I'm comfy and cozy, and that's what this jumper is. So anyway, I'll show you it. So this is it so far. So for the, make it a bit tidier, for the yoke I've used Madeline Tosh in a merino nylon, so it's really squidgy and soft. And I kept thinking as well, not that, well, sometimes things make me a bit prickly, but this I thought, well, it won't be. So I thought that would be lovely at the top. Let me show you a good part, because I have made mistakes, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But you can sort of see these little sort of V pattern, lacy. It might be better once I've blocked it, you know, you might be able to see it better. But I think being a speckly yarn, it's quite hard, but then also it might be quite forgiving and might hide some of my mistakes. So yeah, Madeline Tosh merino nylon for the yoke, and I held that double. And then when I'd used all that up, I then used this sort of rusty coloured yarn. Now this was actually, this and this are both Garthenor Number 2. And it's actually a sport weight, but when I held it together, I thought, oh, that'll be fine. It is a little bit thicker and a bit denser than the merino, but they're different types of yarn, aren't they? But it seems all right to me, I don't mind. Yeah, sport weight woolen spun, and it's an organic single breed British wool. Yeah, Garthenor Number 2. So that's in the Dragon's Blood colourway, and also this one is in the Shale colourway, so quite natural. So yeah, so I carried on with the yoke in that, and then once I'd got to this, it was nearly time to split for the sleeves, and it's just plain knitting. After a little while, I was thinking, I don't think I'm going to have enough yarn to finish this jumper off, but I found I had some more quite natural looking yarn. It's not exactly the same colour, it's very similar, but not exactly the same. And then I went through my yarn stash and then found that I had this. And this was the yarn I used in my first ever jumper I made, the Enarshar sweater. This is JC Rennie, I think it's lamb's wool. And again, I'm holding that double. So in the end, I decided, after I'd done the 1, 2, 3, I then decided to go with the browner yarn. It's in the colourway Nutmeg. So I've started a bit more on the sleeve, but then I felt like I needed to do a bit of yarn management to make sure that my sleeves and my body of the jumper match. I'm going to stand up a little bit so you can sort of see I've started on the body. And then once I've used all of that browner yarn up, I'll then add that last bit of natural yarn. Yeah, so some days I think, oh, I don't know if I like it, and then other times I think, yes, it's very nice. It's nice and chunky. It's really, really warm. And in fact, the other thing I was going to say, this yarn, the Garthenor in the natural, it really smells lovely of sheep. And every time I pull it out of the bag, I can smell it. And when I was actually working with it, I could like feel the oils in it. It wasn't leaving my hands greasy, but you could definitely, you know, you can feel, yeah, as if you just run your hand over a sheep. It was lovely. So I know it's a mixture. It's a mixture of different yarns, which I don't really mind about. But I just thought, well, that's fine. I'm using up my yarn stash. Now, to talk about the pattern. Now, this is purely my opinion and my experience of making the pattern. And as I've said before, when I make things, I do often make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. But I just wanted to sort of get your opinion on it as well, see what you think when you're following patterns. So when I bought this pattern, it's the most expensive pattern I've ever paid for, and from that I remember thinking, oh, maybe it will have lots of detail in there and lots of maybe pictures or links to more details about certain stitches, but in fact it's quite a simple pattern. You know, it's easy to make and to knit, and the pattern is very big, but mainly because it includes charts and written instructions for various sizes. But when you choose your actual size, there aren't many pages that you need to refer to make the pattern. The actual making the lacy yoke is really nice. It's a lovely simple stitch. But I found that it wasn't written as clear as I wanted it to be. For instance, when you've finished the rib, it suggests that you put, for my size, 30 stitch markers in various places before you start doing the lace work. But in the written instructions, there is no mention of knitting to a marker or slipping a marker, which I've had in various knitting and crochet patterns, just to help guide you that you're in the right place. So that to me was a little bit strange, because I thought, what's the point in saying putting all these stitch markers in if it doesn't tell you what to do with them? I then realised fairly early on that I must have made a mistake, because when I was making the lace part, it didn't seem to ever correspond like the same bit every single time I got to a stitch marker. So in the end, I took all the stitch markers out and then just thought I'm going to just follow the written instructions. And the written instructions it's just a repetitive pattern, but I thought, well, I can follow that. I'm not particularly visual. I do know how to use a chart, but I would much rather see it written down in black and white. And I can be quite methodical in my mind when I'm sort of saying the pattern out loud, to myself. So I also realised I must have made a mistake very early on with my stitch count somehow, because where can I show you? I don't know how clear it will be, but you might be able to see sort of a line of where this is a particular stitch pattern. And what happened was part of the yoke, the top part of that little lumpy bit is missing, or it's a bit skew with. But again, seeing it like this is very hard to see. Or maybe here you might be able to see. So here that you can't see a bit there, but you can see the lumpy bit there and there. But to be honest, like I say, I don't mind. It's not really major. And what I found every time I kept checking it was once I'd removed all the stitch markers and followed the pattern, it was all completely in line. You can sort of see there, these little V's. There was another part in the written instructions that just said K and a number, which I presume meant knit and a number. And the chart said, it sort of highlighted that it was a complete knit round, but there was also mention that you have to do something with the yarn overs. And this then confused me a little bit, because I kept thinking, should I have been doing something with my yarn overs before? And is that why my stitch count is a bit out? And so I messaged the designer, and she responded really quickly, which was really good. But she sort of mentioned not to worry about it, and that most experienced knitters would have known what to do. So that made me think, well, that's a shame, because does that mean that you can't make it if you're not an experienced knitter? Or I find as well, when I make things, I've never done certain stitches before, but I can look things up on YouTube, or some patterns often will have a link saying, "I'll go here and look for that," or you'll see a picture of it in the pattern that will help guide you. And even if I know a stitch, I sometimes forget how to do it and I have to look it up. So that bothered me a little bit, thinking, well, I don't know if I've gone wrong now, or... Anyway, I just kept going, because I thought, well, it looks like the pattern. And then once you've done the lacy bit, then it becomes just knitting. And in fact, once I got to the splitting for the sleeves, I did then start to think, I'm not going to carry on with the pattern, because I think my stitch count was out, and I'd rather just sort of stop and then just do knit. No one is going to know except me. So yeah, and looking at it, actually, I've never really stared at myself in the mirror with it on me, but yeah, I think it's going to be nice. Very autumnal in the springtime, but anyway, it will be a jumper ready for me later on. So yeah, I'm enjoying. I mean, once you start knitting and you're doing sort of, going round and round, it just whizzes by. It's so easy. So that's this month's sweater. And really, if I can do a sweater in a month, then or just over a month, then I think I'll carry on, because I'm still able to get a pair of socks done as well. The other thing I was going to say is I've got some tiny little bits of the Madeline Tosh and that left, so I might even add them in on the ends of the sleeves, because I still don't really know if I have got enough yarn or how long the jumper will be, but I'm just going to keep going till I use all my yarn up. Last time I was also saying that I was about to have a week off, and my daughter had half term off school, and I had taken some annual leave, which I was desperate for, to have a break from work, and I did absolutely loads of knitting and crochet. Some days that's all I did, apart from getting up and making myself a drink and some food, and it was just lovely. Yeah, I felt really I recharged my batteries, and it was so nice to really dedicate big chunks, a whole day to projects. One of my friends from work, it was a special birthday for her, and I thought, I'm going to make her a shawl. Now I've gifted it, so I'm just going on my Instagram to see if I can show you a picture of it. I don't know how well it will come out on the iPad and me showing you. But yeah, that's it there. You might see a reflection of my my tablecloth. So this is the Hinterland. Let me just check. Yeah, the Hinterland shawl. It's a crochet shawl by the designer Rosina from Zeens and Roger, and I'd really wanted to make one of her shawls for a long time. I had some yarn, 2 skeins of Aran weight yarn, so I was looking for a crochet pattern that could use the Aran weight up. Now this first one, let me just sort of stretch it out. That was a Donegal Aran with Neps in. I don't know if you can see the Neps, all different colours. It was a bit like a greyish neutral with blues and pinks and yellow speckled Neps. It was lovely, and it was so soft. And very quickly I realised that using Aran weight, it eats it up so quickly, so I knew that my shawl was not going to be as big as the pattern suggests. After the Donegal, I added this lovely blue, and that was there. That is Debbie Bliss Falkland Aran in a really lovely, pretty, like not denim blue. It's got like a baby blue. So when I realised I was not going to have enough yarn to make the whole thing, I stopped, because it's like a pattern repeat. I stopped on the final row of a repeat to start the border, and the border suggests that you use double crochets, and me and double crochets don't go. I always find that I'm too tight, and it makes any garment I make have no drape. So I substituted the doubles for trebles, and that's what's created this sort of mesh. And again, the border was not as big as the border on the pattern, and then I just carried on and used all my yarn up, and it obviously still wasn't as big as I wanted it to be. So then I added, you can see just a little bit there, a few rows of this sort of contrast speckly yarn. That was using from an old advent calendar of Norah George yarns. I had a pink speckle and a blue speckle, and they were finger and weight, and I held 2 strands together to give a bit of a DK weight, and then did that on the edge. So even though it wasn't the same weight as the Aran, it was fine on the edge, and then once I blocked it, I could really stretch it out. Probably still not as big as I wanted it to be, but it was fine. Gifted it, and my friend really loves it. She's a lovely friend, and she's someone who always compliments me on anything that I make, and I thought, oh, you really deserve a handmade birthday present. So that was my Hinterland shawl, and I made that in 2 days. It's probably the quickest thing I've ever made. Do I need to tell you about anything else? I think that was it. But that was a lovely, really lovely shawl to make, and I definitely would like to make another one. Whether in Aran, I might, do it in a DK. But it was a really lovely pattern. Check Zeens and Roger out. She's fantastic. It's got some lovely patterns out. I then did a bit more progress on my Wick shawl. And that's the Wick shawl is Helen Stewart from Curious Handmade. And I'm using this beautiful yarn, I mentioned this last time, from Helen from Woolly Chic. This is her Heartspun yarn, and it was it's a mixture of Blueface Leicester and Tencel. Here's the yarn, and here's the shawl. Oh, how shall I hold it? It looks like I'm in the middle of a round. Sorry. Let me move it along a bit. Oh, look, you can see a little bit of fluff there. Look, it's really like a bit of a halo. It's really lovely. It's so light. It's like a cloud. It's so very soft and squidgy. I'm not showing you it to its best because it's all on this 100cm cord, so it's getting quite big now. And I've got some of the colour changes in there. Oh, it looks lovely, doesn't it, with those stripes? So I'm almost, if you know Helen Stewart's patterns, she puts the percentages of how far you are. Yeah, I'm about 12 rows off of being at 50%. And obviously as it gets wider and wider, it takes a little bit longer, but I'm really loving it. I would urge you to check out Woolly Chic, her Instagram page, and she's got links to her. She's now selling this yarn. Originally it was a Kickstarter campaign, but it's all up and running, and it's really, really beautiful. Look at the stitch definition. Yeah, it's lovely. It is so soft and squidgy. It's reminding me a little bit of a travel knitter. I made a shawl out of her yarn, and it was made from baby camel, and this feels a bit like that. It's so, yeah, it's so soft. Yeah, so I'm loving that. So yeah, check Helen out, Woolly Chic, and her Heartspun yarn. It's just beautiful. A bit more drink. Oh look, I'm looking at the sky. It's really cloudy now, isn't it? But it's quite warm. Last time I also was talking to you about my beginning sewing journey. So I've recently completed a 5-week beginner's sewing course, and at the end of it we all made a cushion, and I showed you the material I used. So that is now finished. Here is my cushion. Yeah, I'm really happy with it. And this is well used already. It's full of cat hair on the settee or my chair. It's lovely. Now what I'm really pleased about, apart from I can't believe I've actually sewn something, but I've sewn an invisible zip, and I'm really pleased with how neat that is. It's just, yeah, I'm really, really pleased with it. It's really given me the confidence and the excitement to make things. I have got enough of this material to make another one, but I haven't yet. I just need to get another invisible zip. So since I've finished that course, I then have started the next course, which is beginner's dressmaking course, and that's another 5-week course, and it's all the same girls that did the original course, so that's been really lovely, making new friends. And for that, by the end, we were making an A-line skirt, and we're using this New Look pattern, 6106, and I'm making this version, which I don't know whether I'm going to be putting that bow on it. I don't think so, but it has got pockets. Let me show you what I bought, the material. I'll first of all tell you where I'm doing this course. It's at the studio at number 30. She's on Instagram, Kay as well. Check her out. And it's a local to me studio. She sells lots of haberdashery stuff as well. So I'm going to make my skirt out of denim. It's quite a light denim. And I'm going to put I went and bought some fat quarters, and I'm going to do a little contrast pocket, so you can sort of see it. You know, I'm doing this, but you can't see me. You can just see the little insides of the pockets. And also I'm going to use this other yellow for around the inside of the waistband. So, you know, if you bent it forward, you'd see what's inside, just to give it that little extra pretty detail. Oh, so that's tonight. It's week 2 tonight. Last week I had an odd annual leave day, and I spent all day tracing the pattern out and cutting out the parts, and I was so happy. I had such a lovely relaxing afternoon, and using my brain to sort of do a new skill. I really enjoyed it, and even just working out where the pattern goes on your tracing paper so you don't waste it. And I imagine that's what it's going to be like tonight when we start pasting or putting the tracing parts onto the fabric, you know, making sure you don't waste any bits. So I've thoroughly enjoyed that. So all of my bits have all been traced out, and I've just rolled them all up, all ready to take to the class tonight. So I'm really excited about that. And then when I went out shopping looking for fabric, there wasn't really anywhere local to get fabric. I went to Hobbycraft, and I couldn't really find any fabric that I liked there. It was all sort of really aimed at children or sort of homeware. And I went to another shop local to me called Dunelm Mill. I don't know if you've got one of those in your area, but again, it was all about sort of like curtain material and nothing really for dressmaking. But back at Hobbycraft, that's when I found the fat quarters, and I bought loads of fat quarters because I thought, oh look, a bit like collecting yarn, I thought that can be the beginnings of my fabric stash, and I'll be able to add bits to other garments. I didn't realise how big a fat quarter was, so so I've got various different colours all in my cupboard. But while I was in Hobbycraft, I bought the first ever sewing magazine. I've never bought one before, and I bought it because it came with some free patterns. So I bought this one, Love Sewing, and it came with, I can't believe this, it came with a Tilly and the Buttons pattern, and this is one of her new patterns from her new book, these pyjamas, Juno pyjamas. So just to buy the magazine for that alone, I thought that's amazing. And I love pyjamas, so I would definitely want to make that. So that was one of the patterns, and it also came with some other patterns. It came with these skirt pattern. Now I don't really wear skirts, but I know that I do want to make some, so I probably again might make that shorter version rather than the long one. And then it also came with a trouser pattern. Again, sometimes it's hard, isn't it, to not be put off by what the picture looks like, but imagining, would you wear that style? Not sure. But even if it's just learning how to make things, so to get all of those patterns free with that magazine is amazing. So this is a recent, it's issue 78, Love Sewing. So just for that pyjama pattern alone, that's worth it. Much cheaper than even buying a pattern. Now, where are we? I think we're nearly there. Oh, I know. One thing I was going to speak about was someone left me a comment when I was talking about sewing and the fact that I've been following some different Instagram accounts and podcasts, and they signposted me to a really good podcast called The Stitch Sisters, and that's been fantastic. They're two friends who have their own sort of little sewing business, and they teach sewing in their own home, but their podcasts focus on the things that they've made. So they'll talk about patterns that both the ladies make, and how they adjust them for their different body shapes, and that's been really interesting. But also it's been really informative on my sort of beginner sewing journey, just talking about even fabrics. I mean, I wouldn't have even known all the different cottons that you could get, and you know what would be suitable for one pattern compared to another. So yeah, they've got a whole selection of podcasts on fabric, whether that's cotton, viscose, wool, stretch. It's been fantastic. So I would definitely urge you, if you're into sewing or new to sewing, check out the Stitch Sisters podcast, and they're on Instagram. And then I've also come across a couple of really lovely podcasts to do with knitting and crochet. One of them is Rachel, and she's from This Knitty Life. She's quite a new podcaster, and she is a prolific jumper or sweater maker. So that's been really inspiring, watching her, you know, whip up these jumpers in really lovely bright colours. So she's a lovely podcast to watch. And she mentioned a friend of hers who also podcasts, called Carly, and her podcast is My Creative Daydream, and she makes things that I want to make or make as well. So she's a mixture of socks and shawls and jumpers. So I've really enjoyed watching her. I've got loads of her back catalogue to binge watch. And then also someone mentioned a fantastic series on Netflix called Next in Fashion. Some of you might have heard of this already, but it's a competition, you know, a bit like the Sewing Bee, but the people on there are like professional fashion designers. Now, I'm not into fashion at all, or I wouldn't, you know, understand that, but it's been amazing just watching this competition and watching how quickly they make these amazing projects, and it's been really good, and I've binge watched that whole series, so and it was quite emotional. I really enjoyed that. So anyone who again is into sewing and is really missing the Sewing Bee, and it's another really great program to watch. So I think that's probably it. That time has flown by. What's the time? 37 minutes. So I've spoke about my socks and my future socks, my jumper, my gift shawl, my other shawl, my cushion, my skirt. Yeah, I think that's probably it. Oh, and my daffodil, I spoke about that too. So hope you're all okay. Carry on, please, messaging me. I love seeing your comments and having a bit of a chat back with you. Hopefully see you in April. Okay, bye.